My world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say I am what I am.
Now, over to our guest today, Lynda Sheridan. Lynda, welcome back, for, as I said.
Thank you, Mick.
Lynda, you're one of the, shall we say, the prime movers in that we have Transgender Day of Remembrance in Ireland. Tell us, what is the background to it? What's the history of it in Ireland?
Well, the history of it goes back outside Ireland to America. That's
sure, that's
where
it
it
started.
About 22 years ago or so. And it was a friend of a friend who was transgendered, who was murdered. So she decided to do an online remembrance every year. She gave that up a couple of years ago, like retired from it. So I thought then, after I set up Tenny, a year after I set up Tenny, that maybe we need a live, so to speak, remembrance where people could be there and meet other people who transgendered, and people from all walks of life would come, and then they would speak with these people. That it might help to further the fight that we were having for our birth certificates.
Yeah.
You know?
How long ago was that in Ireland, Lynda?
11 years ago. This year it'll be the 11th
This will be the
anniversary
11th
of that, and it'll be of, well, really Tenny was set up 12 years ago, but it's the official 10th anniversary coming up when it started being properly recognised in regards to getting some grants and stuff like that for to run it.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? About I first came in contact with Tenny about 5 years ago, and it was just purely with some work I was doing with another radio station. And I found not just Tenny, but the entire, shall we say, consciousness in Ireland about trans, it's changed dramatically in that short period of time, hasn't it?
It really has. Like the gender recognition bill has dramatically made life much better for people, and hopefully now that will go back down to the children, and that they will be properly treated and supported through school, right from primary school, and that which is so important.
Well, what's really interesting, we did a piece about 2 weeks ago with marriage about marriage equality in Australia. And everybody is over there. They're all really impressed with what we did with marriage equality and what we did with transgender recognition as well. That's good to see, isn't it?
It's absolutely fantastic if you take the population of Ireland, the size of Ireland, and what we have achieved.
Did you think? I mean, we've spoken about this in the past with yourself about growing up trans in Ireland. Do you wish you were a youngster now? Your life would be very, very different if you were, say, a trans person who was 20, 21 now.
No, do you know what? I don't dwell on that path, Mick, because that was my journey through life to get me where I am today. I can only be happy that I know other younger people now won't go through the same agony and torments. There's a lot of help there now for them, and there's legislation and more understanding. So that's where I go. You can't. The past is gone, and the future's not here. So I just live for the day.
Yeah, but in many respects, Lynda, what I say is that you're a bit like Moses. I mean, you led the people through the wilderness. You led them through the desert for 40 years. Now, Moses never got to the promised land, but his people did. And I think that you've just said, you've more or less just said it the right words there. The children of Lynda will get to the promised land.
That's what I hope for. And I hope before my day is up, in 120 years. That you will see every child cherished from the moment they utter that they aren't who people think they are.
Indeed.
I mean, it was 5 years of age when I started saying it now, and I'd be coming up to my 66th birthday soon. I'm only a young thing.
You're only a slip of a thing.
It's only a number on a calendar. If you're healthy, you're young. If you're sick, you're old.
Something that I'm very conscious of when I started engaging with Tenny is that we were trying to get some decent media coverage, and all at the time, and we're only going back 5 years now. People seem to be, or even less than that. People see the papers and the television. All they wanted was scandal, sort of thing. They only wanted something that was colourful. They didn't want, here we have a trans person going about their business and working in a day-to-day job, just like the person who's red hair or left-handed or whatever. Have we put that behind us?
To a certain extent, but not completely. They still will always go after the controversial and look for the controversial.
Yeah. That sells papers, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and you look for people in everyday situations, and you talk with them, and you see the reality of people. We're just not so different than anybody else. Like, we laugh, we cry, we bleed, we seek love, we fall out of love, we starve if we don't have the money to buy food. We're just human, the same as any other human.
However, one of the fundamental differences that sadly are still there, less so in Ireland, but when we start talking about other parts of the world, trans people are still subject to violence, they're still subject to abuse, they're still subject to ridicule, in that sense of the word, that the rest of the population generally isn't. I mean, are we, in Ireland, we seem to be blessed in the sense that there isn't that much recorded anyway of violence against trans people, but I'm not saying it's not there. What's from talking to the people in the trans community, Lynda, is it there? It's not being as reported as much, or are we fortunate in one sense that Irish people are a bit more mature than other parts of the world?
It wasn't necessarily that people suffered usually from violence in Ireland. Of course there was, like, and I was subjected to myself at one point in my life. But it's more from the isolation of it that people have died.
Indeed.
There's terrible isolation and guilt. And guilt is a word that I'm working hard on. I've studied the word guilt to eradicate from my life.
It shouldn't be there.
It's an awful word,
isn't it? Yeah.
It's not in any Germanic or Indo-European culture.
It's culturally induced guilt, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It was put there purposely for that.
I used to say to people that Ireland was the freest country in the world. You could do anything you liked as long as you felt really guilty about it.
Yes, that's kind of what my talk to people at the Remembrance Service will be about, the word guilt this year. Like,
excellent. Let's come back to that. The Remembrance Service. All the ones I've been to have been in the Unitarian Church. Has that been the venue since the beginning, or
that has been the venue to begin? The reason I picked the Unitarian Church myself was I never felt any love from other churches, and it was only when I went to two girls going back 12 years ago that they were getting a blessing of their union in the Unitarian Church. I said, that's the first time I've ever seen such a nice response being
This
given.
was before civil unions or anything like that, wasn't it?
Yes. So I said, wow, that's what I just said. So I asked to be rebaptised in the Catholic Church as Lynda. I said, because I believed that other one was imposed upon me when I didn't know.
Absolutely.
So I got rebaptised in the Unitarian Church because I believe in God. I don't know who God is, but I believe I'm spiritual rather than religious. So I said, well, would you baptise me? And if there is a God, would this stand before God? And the minister said, yes, of course it would. So my biggest worry then was when he was actually pouring the water over me was my hair was ruined. I didn't know God. But I knew and understood what I was doing, and I was quite happy to do that then.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because I think most Dubliners would know the building, the Unitarian Church up there in Stephen's Green. But I had never been into the Unitarian Church until I went to the first of the Transgender Day of Remembrances a few years ago, and it's a lovely place to go to, isn't it? It's a very welcoming place to go to.
It is. It is very, and you can be spiritual there. You don't have to be religion. You don't have to see Holy Communion and other aspects of where I feel was imposed, and you were blackmailed and into throughout your life, and and a religion that totally rejects who you truly are. You're not a bad person. Well, that's no use to you in your life.
That's politics, really, isn't it? I found. Whereas I find the Unitarian Church is it really does capture the essence, and it's been it has been one of the earliest friends of the LGBT community in Ireland, has it not?
It has indeed. It's the only reason. They have another mass there or sermon there for LGBT altogether, some time before Christmas. Where I thought that transgender people need one to be separated from orientation in people's mindsets.
Yes.
So that's why Tenny was set up. That's why the Transgender Day in its own right was set up, and fight other people to it from all walks of life. Because I found that was the only way that people were going to realise the reality of gender identity and transgender, and all that comes within that,
So how did you feel when GCN put out an article about 3 or 4 years ago saying, do we really need the T in LGBT? Do you remember that piece?
Yeah, and I've often wondered about that myself, because LGBT are basically orientations.
Exactly.
And you can be transgendered, and you can be either one of those, or you can be heterosexual.
Indeed.
Or asexual.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was too closely connected, and that, I think, in a way held up our journey to the birth certificates. It held us back a bit, even though it wasn't intentional.
I mean, most people I would, we've now got LGBTI, and depending on where you go to, it can be LGBTIQ.
It's like the alphabet.
Well, it can be, but at the same time, I think it's important, to realise that there is a plurality, and that was one of the problems of the year. When you and I were growing up, you were either a homosexual man or you were a lesbian woman, and there was no in between.
No.
And then we got David Bowie, and everybody was bisexual for a few years.
Exactly. I just wonder, is every human being really bisexual?
Oh, I think
if we admire it, is sex fluid.
Well, as I say, we tend to find certain people attractive and other people unattractive, and at that moment in attractiveness, generally a lot of people don't tend to work. We don't tend to wonder about their gender too much.
We're putting a bit of fun into it, if you know what I mean. Some people in my life, when I was younger, used to say, "Oh, you're a real girl," because my nature and stuff like that. Yeah, when I was physically a girl, they ran away from me. So that in itself was a bit bigotry,
Yeah. Can I ask you about that very point? Because I don't know if you've been watching the series Transparent.
I've recorded. I haven't actually watched it yet. I haven't recorded.
Well, it gets better. It started off. In series 1, it was really how the family respond, and then in series 2, season 2, it was how you respond within the wider community, and now it's season 3 has got really interesting. Of to be a female, how important is physical characteristics, how important is surgery, and all of that. So I can thoroughly recommend it to you, Lynda. But
I'll definitely be watching. I kind of watch it all over one night.
A fabulous viewing over the Christmas holidays.
Yes,
exactly. But tell us the Unitarian Church. I mean, the last few years, either we've had the Lord Mayor or we've had the representative of the Lord Mayor. Was that there from the very beginning? Did you get that sort of recognition, or is that latter?
In the very beginning, no, it wasn't. And then I just seen that all the LGBT organisations were getting all these officials were coming and lauding them and helping them and all, and we were just being left behind.
Yeah.
So I asked to meet the Lord Mayor one day, going back 10 years. I'd have to look through my diary for the name. And said, come over and meet me. And so I went over and met him, And then I asked, would you...
who was the first to come along? Do you recall?
I think of the name. It's going back. You go back 10 years, like, you know.
It wasn't
So that was-
wasn't Dermot Lacey? No. Wasn't Vincent Jackson?
No.
Okay.
No. But if they didn't come themselves, then they
would
sent
send
the
it, yeah.
Deputy Lord Mayor and the Councillor Rebecca Moynihan.
It's
who
Rebecca
they
this year.
represented
Yeah, she'll be
this year, like,
Yeah.
you know, because Brendan Carr is otherwise engaged, and I did let him know very late this year
Yeah.
because I'd been ill, and you know, and
Well, if I recall, a couple of years ago, Councillor Larry O'Toole did a fabulous
Larry
job,
O'Toole
didn't he?
did,
You know,
yeah,
Larry
yeah,
delivered
well
the.
received of that.
Yeah. So look,
You know,
but I think it's important to get that sort of recognition, isn't it?
it is. You know, it gives a bit of respect, and it's important for the people who come who will be still vulnerable. You know,
Yes.
and that they see there is a respect there of them, like, you know.
Just to let people know, Lynda, because it's actually, although it's a solemn event, there's also what I would call there's an element of not so much entertainment, but there's a bit of culture there as well. Would that be there as well
Yeah,
this year?
there is. It's an uplifting thing. It's a celebration of life and remembering those that are gone, like, you know, and you know, not only those that was murdered, like, or suicide or that, but those who just died without ever feeling the hand of equality.
Indeed.
You know, or the fold of equality, like, you know.
Yeah.
So it's important to know, like, you know, where it all came from and where we are today, and, you know, and be thankful for that we have those of us, say, of my age group, you know what I mean, there would be lesser would have made it through than
Absolutely.
than there is younger people.
Yes.
You know?
Well, even if we just go back 12 months, I know of at least 3 trans people who are not with us this year that were around last year. Now in Ireland, I don't think it matters too much. The fact a loss is a loss.
Yes.
Now, obviously, it's terrible if somebody is murdered, but it's no less painful if somebody has taken their own life.
Yeah.
And I think all the cases in Ireland this year, I know, have all been people who took their own life, which is very, very sad.
Yeah. I had a very sad event in my own family this year, which brought me to where I'll be speaking to people about this year. As I said already, the word guilt, and there was a suicide of my nephew. You know, and it was a sad tragedy because his sister had died 3 months before him from
What age was he?
After that, he was 31.
It's incredible,
and she was
isn't it?
36.
Yeah.
And a lot of you know, younger people seem to be dying, and I think it's more than gender or sexuality. There's other
pressures.
pressures. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, no, I know. I heard of another
there's a
case
more
about
than
2 weeks ago.
phenomenon reading, I think, you know.
And particularly bad amongst young men, you know,
Yes.
men in their 30s to 40s.
Yeah, whatever it is, they don't seem to be able to handle the depression, like, you know, and I often wonder, you know, going through my own life, trying to look back in it, is that how I got through it because my innate female identity? I hate that.
You're made of stern stuff, Lynda, and I think the fact that you're a Northsider.
That's it, that's right.
Yeah.
Take a walk on the wild side.
Exactly. Lynda, tell us, I've been telling people to come along, whether you're trans or not, or whether you know somebody you're trans, that this is about solidarity as much as anything else in respect.
Anyone and everyone is invited to come along. Like, you know,
tell us the date and the time.
It's the 8th, this Friday coming, the 18th of November at 8 p.m. at the Unitarian Church. And if you're lucky, if they don't drink it up too far, there'll be a free glass of wine after, and a cup of tea and coffee, and
you get to meet some fabulous people, and you will
go away enlightened and more understanding and more knowledge, and nobody will be ashamed to answer any questions that you might have about it or misunderstandings of it, you know, and that's the whole reason for it, an idea of it, like, you know.
Yeah. So the date for you this coming Friday, the 18th of November, 8 p.m. up there in Stephen's Green, the Unitarian Church. You'll see myself, you'll see Lynda as well, and we pay tribute to the all the brave and wonderful people in the transgender community everywhere. Lynda, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We will catch you again soon.
Here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Want to say thank you to Kirsty for doing such a terrific job on the desk, looking fabulous in there. And don't go anywhere because Dublin Edition is coming up, looking at events which makes Dublin a better place to live in conjunction with Dublin City Council, and it's probably going to be presented by Heather, if not by somebody else. I'm Mick Fitz.
My world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say I am.